So you clicked on this video because you want to be a civil engineer. You might be a senior in high school, you might be a freshman in college, and you're just trying to figure out what the heck you are trying to do. So you clicked on this video and you saw me and you think, just based on all my advice, you'll have all of your answers. But I'm just here to tell you that it's going to be a journey. It will definitely be a journey, and you might figure out that civil engineering might not be for you. But I just wanted to give you a video of just a one on one, just like it's me talking personally to you. I don't have any sort of agenda. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm probably barely even going to edit this video. So, whatever comes out is just me talking honestly to you. So, with that being said, I'm just going to kind of dive right into it. So, if you want to be a civil engineer, the main start of everything is really, college. So if you're trying to be a professional civil engineer in the United States, you would need to start out by getting a civil engineering degree. So what does that look like? A lot of times what it looks like is a lot more credit hours than most students. So typically with civil engineering, I mean, it took me 4.5 years, and I know it took some 5 years and maybe even 5.5, because they started out, in freshman year, and they might have failed a class, or they might have struggled through, one of the first starting classes. So I would say understand that it's going to take you a little bit extra time. Now, with that being said, what you're going to be thrown into your first year in civil engineering is all the prereqs, and those prereqs are pretty scary. I actually felt like my prereqs were the hardest classes that I took, and what this looked like my freshman year was calculus 2, it was physics, there was chemistry, so chem 1, there's a chem 1 lab, and then there's this English class that I had to take to satisfy my prereqs. I was able to skip calculus 1 because I passed the calculus A, B, and BC in high school, so that really helped. Now, that first year is really all about prioritization, I would say. In order to make it out your first year, you're just going to have to prioritize your work. And that doesn't mean that you can't have fun. When I was in school, I made a lot of friends. There was a lot of parties around me. People wanted to go out. But at the end of the day, I had to balance fun and school. So you kind of have to think to yourself, about what your priorities are when you're there in college. The whole goal is to get a degree, right? I can throw books out there for you, but there's this book called The New Geography of Jobs. I'm blanking on the author, but your standard of living increases so much, actually. There's data behind it. Your standard of living increases from financial to your relationships to your network if you go to college and get a degree. It's just the stats are out there. You can go check them. So understand that the whole goal of school, if you're there, you're committed to getting that degree. Now, obviously, there's CEOs out there, the Zuckerbergs of the world and everyone else, where, they made it out and they became awesome innovators, and they created programs and products that made them billionaires. But that's such a small percent of people, and you can still do that if you have a dream and you work hard behind closed doors. But the majority of people are in college because they want to try to get a degree and get into the professional world to figure out, what they really want to do. But before I get ahead of myself with professional, getting out into the professional world and all that, we got to start small and dive into college. So again, your first year is going to be a lot of prereqs. There's going to be a lot of temptations thrown at you, and it's your job your freshman year to start off on the right foot. And that means, occasionally you might have to skip going out or going to some crazy party or making the wrong decision, because I've seen it too many times where, there's really bright people that don't have it all figured out freshman year, and it actually puts them behind. You want to start off strong in college and balance the fun and balance the school. There's always a balance involved. If it's, leaning too much towards partying and doing the wrong things, well, you're going to start off on the bad foot. So I would say really lock in your freshman year and map out the classes that you're going to have to take and what you need to do. I remember when I first got to college, I think the biggest thing for me was just trying to understand time management. In high school, you have tasks here and there. You have your mom and dad to tell you what to do. Teachers are a little bit more lenient. But in college, these professors, I hate to say it, if you're at a big university, I mean, they're not really going to remember your name unless you actually stand out and be present. So I would say, in order to navigate through your freshman year and get off on the right foot, you definitely want to build some sort of relationship with your professors, or at least your TAs. Your TA is your teacher's assistant. You want to be, pretty strong with them. And that means, what that looks like is going to office hours. And I know that sounds really scary. I mean, this is coming from an introvert. I was scared to death to go to my professors, but I knew that's what I needed to do to get a good grade in the class. To tell you just a quick story, I mean, I failed my first chemistry lab quiz and I failed my first chemistry lab report. And this is coming from a valedictorian of high school where I literally like never made a B. And this is like the first time that I felt like I failed. And the reason why I'm sharing that is because, freshman year, I could have just given up and I could have just walked away and my whole career would have kind of been over. And, but I didn't. I didn't give up. The first thing I did was I set up a meeting with my teacher's assistant, and I met with her, and we went over the entire lab report and how I could do better and what she's looking for, and just overcoming that fear helped me for the remainder of my freshman year in college because she really helped me out. She saw that I was interested in my work, and she saw that I was hungry. And honestly, building that relationship helped me out more on my lab reports moving forward. So that relationship was everything. And I'm gonna touch a lot on relationships and networking because honestly, that's probably one of the most important things you can ever do in college is build your relationships and your network. And that doesn't mean that you got to be some super crazy extrovert and try to make friends with every single person. But what that means and what that looks like if you are an introvert is sometimes you have to get a little bit outside of your comfort zone. Again, I went outside of my comfort zone meeting with the chemistry lab TA. I got outside of my comfort zone more towards junior year and started talking to more people about internships and different companies because, at the end of the day, you're there to get your degree and you're there to network and try to make your future business partners and your lifelong friends. I'll be real with you. I don't really talk to that many people from high school, and I love those guys. If anyone were to ever reach out to me from high school, I'd give them a big hug and I'd talk to them all day about all the fun stuff in high school. But college is really that next step of your professional career and of your life of making those real lifelong friends and finding your people that are going to make you better and that are always going to have your back because you're not always going to have your parents around. And that really opened my eyes up in college that I needed to make a lot of friends. So I know I'm kind of going off a tangent, but where I'm starting with that is really focus on why you're at school. And I know, I get some feedback where it's like, well, school isn't everything, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to start my own business, yada. If you're in school, that means that you're paying for something. So, if you're there and you're paying for it, make it useful. There's resources out there. And looking back, I think that I could have done a better job trying to network with more like-minded people, like other engineers, or at least other people who are in different fields. And who knows? Who knows what that would have brought, but I'm glad with what I did. I can't change it. I've made some lifelong friends who I still keep up to this day. I go visit them all the time. So to keep a long story short with school is going to be a little bit longer if you're an engineer or civil engineer. It's also going to be very challenging right at the start. But what I'll say is if you build the right base and the foundation, everything just continues to stack up. What I mean by that is everything that you learn in calculus and physics, it ultimately translates to the next classes, which is, with civil engineering, you got statics, you got transportation, you got structural analysis, steel design. You're just really creating a foundation for yourself. So the more that you focus in those earlier classes, the better everything will come out later in the future. Now, on the other hand, okay, so what I try to tell people, and parents are going to hate this, but a lot of the parents, never went through an engineering degree. Calculus and physics aren't everything, especially for civil engineering. So, where I'm headed with that is don't beat yourself up if you get, C's and B's. Do the best that you can do and make it through it. Just get through it. See the light at the end of the tunnel. As a civil engineer myself, I haven't done a lick of calculus. I haven't done a lick of physics. I basically do a lot of project management, people management, some stormwater design, which is really, I think, more basic equations. I mean, the programs are doing it itself, so there's that. The most math that I ever do is more so like geometry or just like basic algebra. So I get questions all the time of like, oh my God, I suck at calculus. Am I going to be a good civil engineer? Oh, I can't understand physics. Am I going to be good? Like, can I be an engineer? And I will say, yes, you can. You can. If you get a GPA of 2.0, guess what? You could still be a great engineer. Now, again, I know that professors and parents don't want to hear all that, but you can still be a great engineer while just getting by through those classes. I just wanted to make that really clear. Okay, now you're a freshman and you're kind of struggling. You might be struggling with calculus, physics, making friends, and so on. But keep in mind, one of the most important things that you can ever do, and I want you to write this down, is get internship experience. And I get a lot of questions about, well, how do I get internship experience? Where do I even start? I would say the first places that you can start, number one, see if there are any career fairs that are coming along. A lot of universities hold career fairs. I know that my college, FAMU, FSU Engineering, we always had a STEM career fair. So now when you go to those career fairs, maybe when you're a freshman, you can just kind of walk around and get used to the environment because it can be really fast paced. You might have people in booths that like want to talk to you, but you're not prepared. At least just like get a feel maybe early on in your career and start seeing what that looks like. Start talking to some other students around and see what companies they're talking to. Start understanding what type of companies are out there because it'll help you later on when you're like a junior and senior. That way you know which companies to actually go to and talk to. I was very fortunate to get an internship when I was a freshman all through up until senior year. I had internships and basically I just threw myself out there. I created a list of companies that I heard over time and started writing them down and ultimately just kept following up with people. This was cold calls, this was emails. I was ruthless in my investigation. I followed up every single week. I was rejected numerous times, but I realized, if I really want an internship, that might be the only way I get one. What I see too many times is students just kind of giving up. So, yeah, I've reached out to 2 companies, but, they never emailed me back. If you want to make it happen, you got to make it happen. You got to continue to follow up. And you won't come across as annoying or anything. Like the civil engineering industry is very, very busy. So, yeah, a recruiter might not follow back up, or a project manager might not follow back up. You might get rejected. Rejection is okay. That just means that you're on to the next one. And you'll always keep that connection around, and maybe, you find that they're open for another position next year. So you just got to be ruthless, with your investigation, if you're trying to find internships. So another thing, so I mentioned career fairs and being ruthless with your follow-ups. I would say definitely sort of organize some sort of resume. Every university has some sort of business center that can help you with this. And even if you need help from me, like feel free to comment below. I'll give you all sorts of tips for resume building. And, the number one question I get is, well, I don't even have an experience. How do I even put experience on my resume? Well, you're in college. It's not expected for you to have experience. That's okay. But one thing that you could put is, your skills as a leader, maybe any sort of projects that you've worked on in college, maybe any past professional experience. Maybe you work for like an Office Max and you were doing sales or something like that. There's always something that you can put on there to stand out. Now, if none of that's even helping at all, maybe even write a cover letter of who you are. Maybe you got some sort of story that you would like to share, or maybe, you have a particular passion that you want to share to this recruiter. You can always write that out in a cover letter. All right, another thing to do besides, career fairs and networking and being relentless, I would say another thing that you can do is create a LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is kind of where it's at right now. I get a lot of emails from different people just, trying to connect. And as a student, build a nice profile, get a nice business picture, hire one of your friends to maybe get a studio light, take a nice headshot, and just start building some sort of social platform on LinkedIn and start reaching out to any sort of HR department, recruiters, project managers. I get messages all the time from students saying, hey, are there any internships available? And, if I really like someone and someone seems passionate enough, I can always kick that over to one of our recruiters. So it just kind of goes back to, if you want something bad enough, you got to do it. You got to put the time in. So one thing that you can do right now, if you're a college student and you're trying to get an internship, is set up a game plan. Get a game plan of a list of like 5 companies that you want to, reach out to, and start investigating. Start seeing where those offices are. Start seeing what type of work that they do. Start gathering the names that you need of contacts. Build yourself a list of follow-up emails, of who you need to reach back out to. You have to be relentless, I'm going to keep saying, relentless. You really do if you want it bad enough. So I would say definitely start there. That's a gold mine of information. So I hope you're writing this down. What are some other things? So internships. Okay, let's say you got an internship, right? What does civil engineering look like? So internships can be a huge learning curve, especially if you're with a larger company. Sometimes they might even hire like 3 to 4 interns, right? So you kind of feel pressure to stand out, and you feel like you're probably competing, right? I would say the biggest thing that you can do as an intern is to be a sponge of knowledge, a sponge. Soak up everything, show up present every day to work, come prepared with a notepad if your boss is telling you to do something, because you're going to want to write it down and you're going to want to ask questions about the tasks that you're doing. I remember when I was an intern, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what an invert was to a pipe. And if you don't know what that is, that's okay. I didn't know how to read construction plans. I didn't know how the county worked when we're trying to develop an AutoZone. I didn't know any of that stuff, but doesn't mean that you can't learn. The only way that you will learn is if you write it down and ask a whole bunch of questions. The worst thing that you can do as an intern is do the exact opposite of that. If an intern comes to me, doesn't have a notepad, isn't jotting anything down, doesn't seem interested in the work, they're only shooting themselves in the foot, right? We don't expect interns to know absolutely everything. We also don't expect interns to think that they know everything. So you want to write everything down and ask questions, but also you got to know your place. You can't come across overly confident. A lot of project managers can sniff that out from a mile away. You're there to learn, and you're there to listen, and you're there to grow. So don't act like you know more than what you really know, because it can come across kind of as arrogant. It doesn't really help your situation. I'm just being real, As an intern, follow through, follow up with your boss. If they give you a task, follow up every day on, the expectation, the deliverable, what it looks like. If your boss is outlining a task and you're really unsure of what this final deliverable looks like, it's up for you. It's up to you to tell him and let him know, or her. It's up to you to let him or her know that, you have absolutely no idea of what this looks like or what the expectation is. Like, how long am I supposed to take? Am I supposed to take 4 hours, boss? Is this like an 11 by 17 piece of paper? Is this like a quick and easy exhibit? Like, what exactly is the expectation here? The more that you can have those types of conversations, the better intern you're going to be, and you're going to get hired. I promise you that, because that's the absolute minimum that you can do. We've kind of dove into the important things that you need to do in school, how to land some internships, and then how to be, a good intern. Now, what does the rest of kind of your profession look like? So, the professional world of civil engineering, there's a lot of different disciplines. Me, myself, I'm a land development engineer. So a client is coming to us who's trying to develop a piece of property into something. It could be anything. It can be an AutoZone, it can be a Walgreens, it can be a whole master plan community with 1,600 single family homes. It just really depends what their business plan is and what they're trying to develop. So as a land development engineer, what you can expect is a huge learning curve, because I would say it's 50-50 between the technical know-how of how to, design stormwater or design utility infrastructure, sanitary, water, reclaim infrastructure. I mean, learning how to site plan and grade and think, outside the box with certain challenges. So, that becomes really interesting. But also a whole nother side is the planning aspect and working through a municipality like a county or a city. We wear a lot of hats. We almost have to be not only an engineer, but we have to be a planner, we have to be a contractor, we have to be a developer, and think, how are we going to get this from A to B? And it's a huge learning curve for some as a land development engineer. There's a lot of critical path items, and there's a lot of things that you can do a week ago that would have helped you on the week that you're on. So that's kind of what it looks like. Sometimes it is a fast-paced environment. I would say, you kind of have to be on top of your game, and you do have to communicate effectively. That's the best thing that you can do to end up growing in this profession. You're not going to know everything at first, and it's taken me 5 years to even get a grasp of what it means to to work through a county and other municipalities. So land development engineering, I think you get a lot of different worlds in there. You have to know a little bit about everything. You have to know a little bit about geotech. You have to know a little bit about environmental engineering. You have to know a little bit about surveying and the timing. You got to know a lot about construction, because we're designing things that are all built off certain assumptions that you get from a geotech or a transportation engineer. So there's a lot of puzzle pieces to it, which is why I really enjoy the job. Now, what other sort of disciplines are there in civil engineering? You got, transportation engineers, traffic engineers. You might be doing some like roadway design, drainage design. Again, you might be a traffic engineer where you're designing all the red lights, yellow lights, all the traffic signalization. You might be designing some right turn lanes, some driveways. There's something to do for each of these types of engineers. What else do we got? We got geotechnical engineer. You might be a field engineer where you go and gather soil samples of a site. You might drill some bores and develop bore logs for a potential land development project. You might be designing some retaining walls. Let's see. I mean, we got so many different types of civils out there. You got structural. You can be a structural engineer. You can design bridges. What else you got? You can design buildings. You can work hand in hand with an architect for a building. There's all different facets, and where I'm headed with this, I can go on a whole list of all these different disciplines, but you're trying to figure out kind of in college and in your internships on what you think you would enjoy the most. And what I will say is, you might start out doing land development internships, but realize structural is the way to go and where your heart is. You might even be a couple years in at your entry level job and realize that you just want to get the heck out, And the reason why I made this video is to just tell you, you're not alone. I thought, when I was in college, I was going to be a structural engineer because I was really good at, structural analysis and steel design. And I was kind of a nerd with that stuff. But I ended up ultimately really liking land development because of all the puzzle pieces. So any advice there is to just, you might think that you have everything figured out at 18, 20, 22, but honestly, you don't. It's forever changing. The best thing that you can ever do is to just keep your eyes and ears open, maintain your connections around you in college and in your entry level position. It's going to be a forever lifelong learning experience as a civil engineer. So with that, I think I don't want to go and rant on too long, but you're here to learn about, what civil engineers do and what that path looks like. So just to kind of summarize, what I walk through today is you're going to do a little bit of extra school. It might be a half a year, unless you drown yourself with a whole bunch of credit hours each year. It's going to be sometimes difficult to land internships. Sometimes you're going to have some late nights where you're studying statics or doing homework that you just feel like it takes forever. You're going to have hard professors. There's going to be a large there's going to be it's going to be very diverse. You got people from all different backgrounds, which makes it just so unique. Different accents, different nationalities, and that poses its own challenge. But really it's all about, what you make it. I would say, me looking back, hindsight 20 is 2020. I look back and saying the most important thing that I gained from college is the people. The people, the relationships that I built, and the fact that I didn't give up during those difficult times when I had failed a few quizzes, failed a few lab reports. It was all rewarding at the end. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Engineers are some of the best paid people in the world. And what I mean by that is not, you're not like some crazy business tycoon, but you make enough money to retire one day and take care of your family, take care of your immediate needs, to take vacations, to build wealth over time. So it is rewarding, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to have the strong enough mindset to go through those challenges and just learn that every single failure is a learning opportunity. I hope this helped you. I kind of just made this off the riff here. I don't have any sort of notes. I was just kind of going on a tangent there, but I hope that I can provide some valuable information. And if you like this sort of straightforward content, feel free to drop a comment below, and I'll keep making more. Feel free to give me some topics to kind of talk about, whether it's related to some of the classes that you might find in college, or some of the sort of intricacies at internships, or how to overcome challenges during your entry level experience. Just hit me up. I'm always here. Hope you learned something new. Hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.